If ever there was something that fully embodied the problems with the reboot of a franchise with the same name as the first instance of a franchise model, which is so inexplicably popular nowadays, it's definitely 2016's Ghostbusters. Not that Ghostbusters is a bad film, it's not exactly a good film either, but more on that in a minute. Not only is having to make the distinction between two pieces of media with identical names made clumsy and obnoxious by extraneously tacking on the year of release either before or after the name and adding an unnecessary number of additional syllables, but it's especially egregious with Ghostbusters since when it comes down to it, the only non-bullshit distinction between the new film and the 1984 original is the one thing that the movie-going public was supposed to accept simply as a distinction and not make a big fucking deal over. But they did anyways. Unfortunately, the pre-release marketing did no one any favors. Say what you want about the fact that the reboot Ghostbusters are all women, and you know what? I think I will. It doesn't matter. I don't give a shit, and frankly, neither should you. But I'm pretty sure we can all agree, regardless of your opinion of the final product, that the marketing campaign for this film was a special kind of awful. Like, somebody deserves to lose their job over this awful. Like Jesse Eisenberg in Batman vs. Superman awful. I don't know how Sony marketing managed to pull this off, but having seen the movie, I can attest. The scenes and jokes that appear in the trailer are actually the worst parts of the film. Literally every other scene is better composed, and every other joke is funnier than the ones in the promotional material. The trailers provided the worst first impression that they possibly could. It would actually be a more reasonable story that the marketing was deliberately attempting to make expectations as low as possible so that the otherwise average film seemed better by comparison, but the day I meet a marketing major smart enough to pull that off is the day I resign as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and donate my body to science to have it repurposed as a pachinko machine. It's honestly difficult for me to envision someone unintentionally fucking up this bad, and considering the worldwide political climate, that's saying something. When you get past that and actually see it, the movie's pretty much just alright. The cast is good, but the script is too inconsistent to keep them constantly entertaining. The plot structure is solid, but the payoff is surprisingly brief and dreadfully anticlimactic. The effects are only special in the same sense that I'm sorry my son was sticking crayons in his nose and eating the wood chips out of your gerbil cage. He's a little bit special, but where Ghostbusters really falters, what keeps me from indignantly waving my hand back and forth outstretched with palms facing downwards, is that it tries too hard to stand out. In the same way Star Wars The Force Awakens put in too little effort in distinguishing itself from A New Hope, Ghostbusters 2016 was out of the door before it finished tying its shoes, and as such, tripped over the very first hurdle. And you know, just having Ghostbusters again with a new cast and some specifics changed around here and there would have been just fine. But seeing as Ghostbusters is a localized comedy rather than a grand sweeping space opera like Star Wars, less would have been more, and less definitely does not include pity cameos from the surviving cast of the 84 original, or shunning the iconic Firehouse set for the sake of a Rent joke, nor does it include trying to legitimize specific bits of technobabble that the original intentionally left vague in order to make its parodic take of the science fiction genre more effective. So with all this willful deterrence, having the same exact plot where three bumbling discredited scientists and a snappy NYC local stop a sadistic villain intent on releasing a supernatural apocalypse on the city while their dim-witted secretary gets unintentionally conscripted by the enemy, just comes across as disingenuous. I really don't want to get too down on a film that had enough talent behind it to pull off something great, even if that particular something would probably have worked better as an R-rated comedy rather than a PG-13 one, but whatever. The fact that something that wasn't animated turned out alright rather than just as bad as the promotional material would have suggested in this fucking miserable blockbuster summer is reason enough for celebration, but with a tighter writing focus and more time to fully cook, a sequel, because of course there's going to be a sequel, could be pretty good. Despite the final verdict, there's a good bit of this movie that was either genuinely funny or genuinely interesting. Of course, the same could also be said about the parts of the film that were either genuinely fell flat or were too mediocre to mention. So there you have it. Ghostbusters is okay. Positive and the negative pretty much balance each other out. It's not good enough to get defensive over, and it wasn't bad enough to warrant outright hostility. I'd be willing to assume that the generous critical consensus stems not from some Sony-backed conspiracy to pay off every respectable film critic in the country for those blistering 3 out of 4 star reviews, but rather a desire to strike back at the frankly ridiculous amount of enraged dipshits feeling entitled enough to claim that they were being personally attacked by a movie with the word ghost in the title, that even the movie itself was self-aware enough to take a jab at it. So I can't really blame the critics that felt that way. Not that I agree with them, the movie is nowhere near 7 out of 10 quality, but a lot of people were just being assholes, and it's really tough for me to feel sorry for them in that case. And on a side note, if one movie is enough to, quote, ruin your childhood, then I'm pretty sure the films you saw in your youth are the least of your problems. I think it might be worth mentioning that aside from the great first movie, movie, half a decent TV show, and 2 barely above average video games, everything Ghostbusters related since 1984 has been complete shit. And that includes the direct sequel, which, may I remind you, featured a Renaissance fresco that wanted to take over the world by specifically possessing a baby, and the venerable Ghostbusters remotely controlling the Statue of Liberty with nothing but an NES controller and the power of friendship. So yeah, fuck that shit. I'll take Melissa McCarthy shooting ghosts in the dick and Kate McKinnon loudly eating Pringles over that hot garbage any day of the fucking week. And if you don't like it, then that must mean you're sexist.